Guys, here we're at Garage, and we are in CPR's garage. We're here with Toby, and he's going to explain to us the benefits of the newer style LS head, the benefits of the difference between cathedral port and a square port, and also the benefits of adding the 6th stud. So, Toby, why don't you go over the big things that we need to know about LS heads?
Well, I think most guys are still stuck back in the 60s and 70s where they had a standard port, where the port was much lower and the air had to travel up and then over around the hump into the intake valve. Also, they're stuck with these 23-degree valve angles for the small block Chevy or 20-degree for the small block Ford. Nowadays, whether it's a cathedral or a square port, for the LS, you have a 15-degree valve angle on the factory GM. The cathedral port for GM actually works very well.
And for cathedral port, we're going to show this. So this is like the cathedral of a church. That's why they're calling this a cathedral port. And this is a square port. And this actually imitates a lot of the big block Chevy shit. Big block Chevy actually came up with the oval port back in the day, correct? Or the rectangle port?
They had a rectangle port, absolutely. Port. Yeah, and you know, GM did something that was really smart. I mean, you look at any race head, you know, in the 90s and 2000s, it was always, or even before that, any race head was a high port. So what did they do? They actually raised the intake port and flattened the valve angle so that way you can get more airflow. I mean, the air basically travels right down the back through the port, and of course you get with a flatter valve angle, you've got more piston to valve clearance.
So when he's talking about the degrees of 20 degrees, 18 degrees, all that, that is the angle of where the valves are facing as opposed to where the cylinders are coming up. That angle is the degrees that he's referring to.
Right, because normally on a 23-degree valve angle, the valve would be, basically the intake valve would sit kind of up here, and it would actually be blocked slightly because of that. Now they're flatter, so you've got 15 degree for the small block LS, or like this one right here, this is our 11 degree LS3 cylinder head that's CNC ported. Even with a 2165 valve, this thing still flows about 400 CFM around 750 lifts. So not bad, especially for a 2165 valve. And we have tested these on many strokers and stock.
Quick thing to look at when you're looking at heads, guys, any heads you'll ever see. When you get into big valves on heads, look at how much difference it is. See how they almost are touching? Look at this. See that difference? So you look right here and you're going, oh my God, they put bigger valves in here because the center here can't change. It can't change. All they can do is make this opening bigger. And when they make this opening bigger, they start touching each other. So stock, big.
Absolutely. So you put the biggest valve you can, because no matter how big you make this port, if you don't have a bigger intake valve and a proper valve job, you're not going to get the flow.
Not going to work.
Not going to work. Now on this is a traditional small block Ford, and this is what the guys had back in the 80s and the 90s, and these guys were trying to make this work, but look at that, it's a tiny, tiny port. Let's compare it to the LS.
So this is our Fox Body 5.0
yes.
meme car.
Yeah, look at that port. But we're talking, this was unchanged basically, still a 20-degree valve angle, and it's basically a standard port location. Look at how narrow that is. I mean, you can't do anything. And then you're limited also by the push rod holes. So you can't actually make that port much wider.
Because you just run into this hole right here.
You run into that hole, absolutely. So now you have to do all these modifications. It's just not worth it. You get an aftermarket aluminum head nowadays, it's going to be lighter. It's going to have better springs, better valves. It's going to flow a ton more. And the truth is, no matter what your brand loyalty is, whether it's Ford or GM, what matters is physics. And if you can get more air in and out, you're going to make more power.
So the key is spending good money on your heads. Spend good money on your heads and it'll actually make the motor run.
You can usually use a smaller camshaft. If you have better flowing heads, the engine will be more efficient with a smaller cam because you'll still make that power, you'll still make that torque, and you don't have to band-aid it with crap heads and a huge camshaft. It might sound cool, but it's not going to run as good.
Yeah, so all those choppy cams, when you don't do head work, it really doesn't do all that much for you. You're kind of kicking yourself in the balls.
And we can see the difference in exhaust right there. I mean, that's a huge difference.
So you guys obviously got a set of already CNC ported cathedral port heads that you're going to set us up for John's rig.
Correct. We're going to do a bigger valves, 202 160s, and we know these will flow well over 300 CFM.
So we're easily going to accomplish our 700 horsepower with this style head.
Easy. We just did a 6.0 stock rebuild 4020 bore with these same heads, 317s with the stainless valves, 202 160s, little hand blending, and a mild 218 duration camshaft, still made 509 horsepower and 480 foot-pounds of torque.
He said 218. I believe the cam we're getting is somewhere in the 500s. So to give you an example of that, that's a lot more cam for what we're going for.
A lot more duration?
A lot more duration. Yeah, so I imagine we're gonna make some good power with our cam. Thanks Comp Cams, and thanks CPR for doing this for us. Thank you guys, I really appreciate it. We'll be back to do lots more.